So thank you very much for joining us today on Spark. I'm joined here at Flipper by Charley Maher and Ian Fewings. First of all, can I just ask you to introduce what Flipper is and what your roles are here?
Well, I might let you do that, Ian.
Yeah,
actually.
so if I kick off, so I'm the customer service manager for Flipper, and Flipper is an online energy switching service. So we've established that there was elements for customers where they wanted to ensure they was always on the best deal, but naturally customers didn't have time to actually check the market all the time. So what we provide is an online switching service where we'll take the hassle out of this for a customer and we'll manage their journey for them. So for a small fee to join our service, we'll ensure that a customer will never overpay for their energy service, and we manage the process for them.
I think what's really important is that piece in the market, because people might hear that and think, well, why are you different to a normal comparison site, which is the conversation that we often end up having, normally with family and friends is where that starts. And actually what makes Flipper really unique and different is the fact that we've entered what is quite a mature market where there are already some very big players. Those companies operate and make their business model work through taking a commission from energy suppliers. And so they will only show the customer the energy suppliers that they're affiliated with. What makes Flipper really different is that actually we work for the customer, exclusively for the customer, and we look at the whole of the market to be totally transparent. So the customer pays us the fee. We have absolutely no commission model with the energy suppliers. For the energy suppliers, we're a free marketing tool, if you like, because if they are the lowest tariff and they fit the criteria that the customer's entered in their onboarding, then that's the partnership that we'll put together for the customer. But we do flip up to four times a year. So we don't just switch a customer and then leave them where they are. We're constantly looking to see how we can save them more money. And the big piece for Flipper about where it's different is the hassle. With a traditional switching site, you would go onto the internet, you would have a look at what's available, and then you would make that connection as the customer, and you would re-enter your details, and you would start a relationship with one supplier. If you decided you wanted to have another look at the market and compare, you'd go through that process all over again. The beauty with Flipper is once the customer signed up with us, what we're doing is we're doing all of that for the customer, and then we're doing it regularly for the customer in the background, and we communicate with the customer to let them know how they're getting on their tariff too. So that's kind of why we're quite different to anything else that's out there.
And we want to guarantee the savings for the customers. So we're that confident that we're able to save customers money. We'll only charge them for our service if we find them a saving. So we'll continue to do the work for the customer, but unless we find them a guaranteed saving, the minimum of £50, we will not switch them to a new provider until that deal comes available. And that continues throughout the journey for the customer each time we flip that customer.
What is innovation to you?
We were talking about this earlier, weren't we? I think for me, innovation is where you have often not just one individual, but individuals working together to create something that's different. I think there's an excitement around innovation, but ultimately, in basic form, innovation is when you take something that is the status quo and you make changes to it so that it offers something different. That's essentially what innovation is at a very basic level. Anything you'd add?
I think it's having that excitement opportunity to change the status quo. And for us, it was very much about keeping the customer at the forefront and changing the lives for customers where we look after them in their financial situation because we're in here to save money. But having something that changes the market where at the moment it's not been changed for a very long time.
No.
I think the energy market is being perceived is quite stable. And with Flipper, it's become that small innovation piece where somebody's seen a small player within that market do something different, but the whole focus has been around the customer.
Why should anyone even bother innovating?
I think in this day and age, innovation is actually driven by customers. So I'm a really big believer that customers now more than ever drive change within business, mainly through behaviour. And if you look at how customers typically interact with businesses now, in fact, BT they do an annual piece of customer research, and they released their customer research in December, and it was a really great piece called Chat Tap Talk. It's online, and they identified the 8 key trends within that report of what's coming from a customer behaviour and interaction perspective. And it's all around online, messenger, but all the services that they highlighted, chatbots, all these types of things, they are all to do with the customer having mobility of service. And it's about, if you think about, most people leave the house nowadays, they're more likely to leave the house without their keys than they are their mobile phone. And with so many transactions going through a mobile phone these days, customer behaviour is that they want things quicker, they want things easier, and they want it to work for them. So if as a business you don't innovate to provide things that are speedier, hassle-free, maybe exceeding expectations for the customer, giving them something different that's going to capture their interest, I don't think your business model is going to last as we progress into the future, because customer behaviour will drive that change.
I think we've seen almost a huge cultural shift as well, where business want to welcome that feedback more so than ever. Because I think previously you've always wanted to ensure you've got the best model, but I think now more and more businesses are reaching out to the customer to actually find out simply what we can do better. I think it's becoming more of a conversation with the customer, where we're encouraging everybody every day, even our staff here, to actually ask the customer what more could we be doing. And I think the customer's driving that change. I think through the customers driving the change, the excitement then becomes within the business to innovate and be something different.
You've mentioned that energy is quite a sort of stable industry. It's been quite similar for quite a long time. You guys are quite a small player, growing rapidly. Your offices here are already expanding. But what role do you think innovation plays in allowing you guys to be able to compete with some of these bigger players?
Well, I think that Flipper's a great example of this, because actually I think stable, I think probably mature is probably a better, a more apt description for the energy market. Stable could be read into a few ways, but I think without innovation, what you've seen over the years is lots of different comparison websites that have come onto the market, but ultimately they might offer slightly different products with slightly different providers, but the overall model of taking a fee for handing a service and acting as that third-party intermediary is exactly the same. So the role that Flipper has played, the innovation piece, has been, how do we look at that model and how do we look at doing that, but doing it with the customers 100% in mind? So we've kind of turned it on its head. So rather than it being about just a business generation business, what we've looked at is, how do we make this something that customers want because they know they can trust it and it works for them? And innovation is key here, because if we'd have followed the same model that had always been followed, what we'd be trying to do is compete with other comparison websites, which is, a big market already. Whereas what we've done is we've brought a product out that's different, and it's probably for those customers that, if I'm honest, don't have the time or the will to sit and trawl through different comparison websites. And interestingly, I mean, we've done challenges with customers, haven't we, as part of our customer research, where we've challenged customers to use comparison websites, to pick a comparison website and to find the best deal. And then we've run our algorithms to look at actually what's the best deal on the market for the customer, and very rarely does it match up. And that's because a customer would need to check several comparison websites, because not every website connects with every energy supplier, as an example. So innovation for us has been absolutely key in bringing a model to the market that is very different to what else is out there. There is space for both, because some customers prefer to be in more control and to have direct relationships and to do the work themselves. So they probably wouldn't naturally, a Flipper probably wouldn't naturally appeal to them. Whereas I think with somebody, Flipper is made for the customer that wants somebody to take the hassle out of it, that wants guaranteed savings, and wants to know that ultimately that business is working with the customer in their mind, rather than a commission that they're receiving from whoever it is they pair them with. So innovation for us in building this business has been absolutely key, and actually continues to be, doesn't it?
And I think whilst we're still a growing small player, we're always proud to say we're independent, and I think that's what makes us different. We're independent because we do not take commission, so we're not privileged to different suppliers that we're going to use. So the relationship is with us and the customer, rather than us and the suppliers, which means we're keeping the customer at the heart of what we're doing.
Brilliant. Well, customer is clearly absolutely central to everything that you're doing, and what I'm thinking about then in this is, how do you think that companies can try and innovate working with the customer to try to deliver a better service, to try and deliver a more tailored service, to try and sort of give them what they want?
Well, I mean, I personally believe, going back to the previous answer when we talked about how important the customer is in evolving and driving innovation, for me, if you're going to innovate and do something different, you have to have the customer voice within that, both to spark the ideas to start with so that you can react to things, but also so that you can test and try things and listen to the feedback, because it's that feedback that will drive you to create the end product or service or whatever it is that you're going to produce. So for me, it's 100% key, and I wouldn't consider, I guess if the team were to put a plan in front of the board, then I know that the first thing we would be looking at is, what do customers say about this? You know, what's the indication customers have given us that they want this change, for instance. So for me, it's absolutely key.
And it's taken on board all the feedback. I think generally you look for the customers who have provided sometimes negative feedback to look to see why we can change. But for us, we research all our customers, so we want to know the customers even enjoying the service, what would be the next step for that customer, because that customer is always looking for a business now to change and up their game. And each year we want to be providing the customers which kind of the next level of our service that we can do, and we're always looking to change.
I'm very, very interested in what you're doing in this sort of space, and one of the things that we talk about in terms of innovation is about sort of getting going with things and sort of evaluating what you're doing, taking the learnings from that to refine what you are doing and make it that little bit better for the customer. What sort of ways are you trying to take on board this sort of feedback and to try and take the learnings from that to make your service even better?
Well, there's a few ways, but it might be better, Ian, if you explain what we do with the customer feedback we're receiving right now.
So we've got different ways that channels will provide us with the feedback coming into. Our main source is actually through Trustpilot, where we encourage all of our customers as they go through our switching journey to leave with the feedback. And I think Trustpilot is such a big brand out there that customers feel confident in using. So we've started a process that we see Trustpilot is a way to communicate with customers, good or bad, but should be a two-way communication. So we respond to all our customers now on Trustpilot to thank them for their feedback. For anybody with a negative experience, we reach out to them as well, so we can make contact with them. But this tells us daily what our customers are experiencing through the process. Now, with any organisation, there'll be processes which are taking place. Sometimes there are glitches, but we want our customers to feel confident in reaching out. And we leave our Trustpilot scores as they are. They're valid. We don't challenge them with customers, because until we've spoken to the customer, we want to know that it's the honest feedback. And naturally, on all telephone calls that we're speaking to customers are providing us with feedback daily. I think with the service of Flipper, because it is so different and it's so new, we take a lot of calls around why all the time, because I think it's sparking that new kind of insight in people's mind that this is different. They're only charging a small fee. Why should I sign up? What are you going to do for me? I think for me, that the feedback we're then receiving once they've gone through that journey is you can see the excitement coming in the feedback, which is the first time I worked for an organisation where customers were excited about leaving feedback, which tells us we're doing a fantastic job of what we're doing. But nothing makes us feel prouder is when that customer receives that saving and actually we've changed that person's bill for the next 12 months. What we're probably seeing now is when the bills have been flipped a couple of times, and we're seeing the feedback where customers going, these guys keep doing it, they keep changing me, and I keep receiving more money off my bills. So for me, the biggest source at the moment is the excitement that the customers are giving us that the job we're doing is working well. But naturally, when it's not working well, we're responding to all of our customers as well.
I think the other thing that the team do really well that I see is we have the regular reporting of management information around customer behaviour and how many visitors, sign-ups, switching, all that type of thing. But one of the things that our Chief Operating Officer Sarah pulls out is always she does the trend analysis with the team, and actually as a board we go through that trend analysis on a monthly basis, which I think is fantastic, and it's very unusual for a business to have transparency all the way through and to be having that customer conversation all the way through. So for me, that really supports that as well.
Absolutely. Well, particularly picking up on that then, talking about sort of the data and analytics that you use, what role or how has that helped you to improve your service? How does that help you to learn more about what customers think and then learn how to deliver something which really hits that?
So data for me is incredibly important, and I think one of the things, being a smaller business right now, is we're probably far more agile, and this is going to be something we're going to need to really plan carefully about as we grow, to think about how we make sure, I guess, you keep the magic of the data alive, as it were, and the conversations keep flowing. But one of the things we're able to react very, very quickly to, where we have a very close team working together. We're not a big business where we have developers working in silo to a customer service team. Everybody is working together. So where we spot issues, where a customer flags something to us, or a piece of data tells us something isn't quite right, we're able to react to it really quickly. And actually, we had a great example earlier today where Ian was just talking to me before this about one of the things we track is our average savings, and we also look at our highest savings of the week. So which customer did we save the most money for? And we had a customer, as an example, this week that had flagged as having a £4,500 saving. Now, that seems quite high. And because that's a report that Ian and the team review literally on an hourly basis to look at what's coming through on that data report, if something looks out of line, we have tolerances, we're able to actually react to that. And in this particular case, this wasn't Flipper's error, this was an energy supplier had input the wrong number of kilowatts into a customer's bill. You can imagine how big the bill was if we were saving them that much. And actually, we were able to alert the customer to the fact that clearly their bill was wrong, and that they were about to, where they put a reading in order to have a bill generated to do their Flipper switch, and clearly they were about to be hit with a huge bill that they hadn't actually seen yet. So we were able to actually intervene, and from that customer's perspective, they were very, very pleased to hear from us. So
it's the support we can provide to that customer and challenging it back with the supplier as well, where we have the industry knowledge. So for many customers, to put that call in and to challenge, we're able to simplify the information and actually guide them on what they need to be speaking to their supplier about as well. So it's actually one of the agents who's already reached out to the customer and made contact, which was a huge success for both parts. Actually, it shows that the data we're putting works, and it also means we're tracking the right information in order to spot these as well.
I think, like Ofwat, the regulator has a part to play here too. So, Ofgem have been very vocal about, how passionate they are about getting things right for customers. This is a huge driver for them. And I think historically, the energy companies, haven't seen this level of conversation about the customer as they have in the last few years. And what we're seeing is energy companies responding really positively to that conversation with the regulator. And actually, we're finding them to be very, very helpful on the whole when we're contacting them on behalf of a customer in particular, in order to support getting things right. Because no company out there wants to get something wrong for a customer on purpose, So I think the data piece enables us not just to help the customer, but it also helps us to work with the regulator and the energy companies to make sure that we're doing our part as part of this market, to make sure that we're all aiming for the same outcome.
Definitely. I think hopefully we would say that we're trying to do that at Ofwat. It's essential for us customers, absolutely. So sometimes when we talk about innovation, we talk about how regulation can be, potentially a barrier to it.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your thoughts on that sort of relationship, and how we can find the right balance to protect customers but to also allow companies to innovate and to deliver new things for them in a better way?
I think for me, when you think about innovation and change and things like this, I think the first thing you have to be aware of is what your parameters are. So I think you have to be absolutely aware. I think the relationship with the regulator, to answer your question, is absolutely key, because if there's something within those parameters that you feel uncomfortable with that would block you from doing what you perceive to be the right thing, particularly for the customer, then you need to have the relationship with the regulator to be able to have a conversation, because the regulator is only going to want to act in the customer's best interests. So actually, from my experience, there's been some really positive conversations that we've had with Ofgem as a regulator in this industry, historically and presently, around how things are working, how certain license conditions might support or not support different business models entering the market. We talk about communication, all these types of things. And I think if you're innovating, you have to have that solid relationship, so that you have the awareness of what you're able to work within, and if there's something within that that's going to stop you from achieving what you need to achieve, that actually you have the relationship where you can go and have a sensible conversation to see whether maybe there's something that could change to help you deliver that.
First of all, do you think that the internal culture in an organisation is important in terms of innovation?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're joined up on that, yeah.
Well then, following up on that, what would you see are kind of the key things that you should look for in an organisation which kind of show that the culture is one that fosters innovation?
I think fostering innovation is often about communication, isn't it? And I think it's really easy for a business or a regulator or somebody to go out and say, we need to innovate more. And that's great. You can give that message, but you have to provide the means to innovate. You have to allow people the time. You have to create the space. You have to create the right environment. It's only if you do those things you can evidence you're really serious about innovation. I think typically, from my experiences outside of Flipper and also within Flipper, I mean, we've tried really hard to create that communication ethos which runs up and down the business, throughout, but also that space for great conversation, the space for exploration, that it's okay to make mistakes. Most brilliant ideas come from making a few mistakes, and actually having a lessons learned, which we do, don't we, process in place to make sure that when you're getting things wrong, you're at least capturing the learnings from that, so it helps with your next innovation or your next idea. I think all of those things are important. So culturally, you have to have people that want to make things happen or want to be a part of something. And I think as a leadership team, the communication, and actually it's more about what you do rather than what you say, I think, and that's what really breeds a culture where people are able to innovate.
So what do you, picking up particularly on that then, what is it important for the leadership of an organisation to do in order to allow that really communicative, oh that was a difficult word to say, communicative culture to develop?
I think for me it's getting into the field, and I think it's being one of them, because I think if you're with your team and you're understanding what's happening, you're able to embrace their changes and ideas when they're coming, and it's to be open to allow them to bring them changes to you. I think for the team here at Flipper, we constantly challenge them not to walk past anything, so if you see something, stop and raise it, because if it's going to impact us or the customer, we want to explore it. And I think we play a crucial part in being with them on that journey, and communicating the whole, for me it's a blue sky approach. If there was no limits, what would we do at this moment in time? We may not be able to get to that perfect result straight away, but encouraging, we will look at every step till we can get there.
And I think one of the things I see the team at Flipper do particularly well is they do create the space and the environment. So, when they look at the product, they're having stand-ups, in the office, and, those regular, quick hit meetings where they're discussing elements of campaigns, of the product, of customer feedback, practically daily, I would say. And at the minute, where we have a split office, where we have an office in London and an office in Bristol, we're using technology to link us together so that we do that as one unit, and I think that's really important. I think from a more senior perspective or on a board perspective, it's no different to what Ian's described. Now, you're not going to be in the office every day, and you're not going to be with that team every day. But yet again, you have to create and foster that environment and the opportunity for that communication to take place, so that you're able to ask the right questions, and you're able to give the right encouragement, and you're able to also learn what's worked and what hasn't yourself, so that you can make better decisions to support that business and give them better guidance in the future.
So I'm going to come on to the final question you'll be relieved to hear, which is all about, so if I asked you both what your one biggest learning was from your journey in terms of innovation that you would tell another person, what would it be?
For me, simply, is to have fun. Innovation should be fun, it should be fresh, and there should be enjoyment across all levels. Because when you get innovation right, it's that proud sense of feeling you've got. So for me, keep innovation fun and always challenge.
And I think for me it probably goes back to my previous message. I totally agree with Ian's message. There needs to be that element, that high five culture, if you like, that element of excitement about what you're going to create. But I think that the other bit is when you're in a leadership role in particular, one of the things the team need to be aware of is what's their surroundings, what's the parameters, what's the operating environment, and are there any changes that need to be made to those things in order to make sure that their team can be successful in what they're trying to achieve.
Well, that sounds like a perfect way, and I think, given you mentioned the high five culture, I'm going to finish it on
Yeah.
there we go. Thank you very much, Charlie and Ian, for joining me from Flipper today. That is the end of an interview here on Spark. Thank you for watching.